Alright my darlings, so I've talked about Doctor Who on this channel a lot, so let's do it again, but a little differently this time. Yeah, I know, I've talked about Doctor Who loads of times on my show, but this time I've got something that's so obscure about Doctor Who that no one will know what it is. Which kind of scuppers my chances of getting good views on this video. I mean, I might as well just do a video about the Marvel movies from the 70s. Regardless, with a franchise that's been around as long as Doctor Who, there are naturally some elements to it that people who aren't as big fans of it are unaware of, and some that even hardcore fans are unaware of. There's of course the various Doctor Who spin-offs like Torchwood and the Sarah Jane Adventures, and also the various K9 shows, which we are never to speak of in the polite conversation of true Doctor Whovians. And then there are the sister shows like Doctor Who Confidential and Totally Doctor Who. There are the webcomics and webcasts that lead into non-related spin-offs that end up getting crowd-funded movies made for it. And even games made for the computer and the old Doctor Who website have been made that even go on to be considered canon, like Attack of the Grask, and even alternative edits to the earliest episodes exist that are special features on the re-release DVDs of them. But even with the amount of stuff the franchise has made, most of the extreme Whovians have at least partial knowledge of them. But there's always one thing that most fans have no knowledge of whatsoever. During the Wilderness years, aka the years between the classic and modern series, so around 1990 to 2004, the BBC and the companies that own the Doctor Who licenses tried their hand at a great many things to test the waters before a new series was commissioned. There were the various low-budget Doctor Who spin-offs, fan films, rip-offs and parodies by the BBV, the Doctor Who movie by Fox and the Sci-Fi Channel, or is it pronounced Sci-Fi now? Yes, I know tons of people have done that joke, but it's still a stupid way to spell your channel. Which was supposed to generate a new American audience for the show, but due to the low ratings and the reception to the film, it ended only after the pilot, which just then became the Doctor Who movie. But there was one other attempt to bring the show to Western audiences, and it's one of the most unknown of the various attempts to bring Doctor Who back to the mainstream, which was an attempt to make a fully fledged animated Doctor Who show. Yes, you heard me right, a fully fledged Doctor Who cartoon. As if the show wasn't weird enough, we now have the Doctor be non-human by every literal definition of the word, and shove him into worlds that even an LSD addict would call way trippy. This tiny buried artifact of Doctor Who history, that even some of the most intense and hardcore Doctor Who fans I know of don't know about this, and why would they? It was never officially released. But even so, it's something that could have happened. But with the discussion of the coulda, woulda, shouldas, I need someone who knows even more about obscure animation than I do, so I've roped in a ringer for this one, animation YouTube reviewer Blueartisan. Are you there, mate?
Yeah, I'm here. Now let's get into this.
Be sure to check out BA's channel once you're done with this video. He's done a lot of reviews on some classic cartoons from the 80s and 90s, including a few that I've talked about in the past. Suspiciously soon after I've done my videos as well.
Ha! You can't prove I've been ripping you off. I was there when the BFG was first broadcast on TV. You just watched it on VHS in the 90s.
True, but enough of our tube measuring here. Let's talk about the Doctor Who cartoon that could have been but never was.
Okay, let's get on with it. The Canadian animation company, NAB Lana, who at the time were the most famous for doing the animation for the Care Bears cartoon. And they were the premier independent animation company of the Great White North. They approached the BBC in making an animated continuation to the series, after apparently saying that they've been fans of the series, though my personal theory is that the BBC were attracted to using them because 1. They were cheap, and 2. They had already done a sci-fi style animation with rock and roll.
One of my all-time favourite movies. I mean, who wouldn't love an animated post-apocalyptic rock musical with mutated dogs, cats and mice, starring Blondie, Lou Reed, Iggy Pop, Cheap Trick and Earth, Wind and Fire, for crying out loud?
Indeed, and with the consent from the BBC, NAB Lana started drawing up designs, scripts and storyboards for the show.
Yes, before Dreamland, before The Infinite Quest, even before Scream of the Shulker, this was the first attempt to take the man from Gallifrey and put him into the animated world. And not a single frame was animated for it. Which is actually kind of impressive, given this is a franchise that even takes unofficial fan films and gives them official releases, and yet no one's heard of this show. You're telling me that the Air Zone solution and Do You Have a License to Save This Planet got VHS releases, played at conventions, and have been reviewed online by critics, and yet no one's heard of this?
Neat idea. Bad image.
Yes, despite even the most minor Doctor Who facts, fans have an entire encyclopedia's worth of info about their creation. very little exists about what this unreleased show would have been like. Many illustrations exist, but it's hard to pin down if they were genuine or just fan art. One thing I can say for certain is that it definitely had NAB Lana's trademark style of the time, with a very crazy and busy backdrops, greatly detailed models, and, we can assume, highly fluent animation style.
Their versions of the Doctor went through a few different design choices. Their first one looked like the third Doctor in the fourth Doctor's outfit, so not a bad start really, but then some of their original designs get really bizarre, from looking like an old-time race car driver to what looks like almost a proto-David Tennant.
Well, I guess that's time travel for you. The 10th Doctor went back and told NAB Lana that the Doctor should look like him.
I had vanity issues at the time.
According to the unofficial Doctor Who wiki, the Doctor's facial structure was designed around Peter O'Toole, Jeff Goldblum,
That is one big pile of shit.
and even Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future.
Great Scott.
And it would be another 20 years before Doctor Who and Back to the Future would ever speak to each other in LEGO Dimensions, because Doc Brown was really pissed off with them nicking his idea of a flying car. But we'll get into that later.
Somebody ought to call a doctor!
Though in all seriousness, I would have loved to have seen Christopher Lloyd voice the Doctor in this cartoon. I mean, yeah, he wouldn't have gotten any of the right mannerisms down and it would have been really distracting. But anyone watching this video right now, look me in the eye and tell me that you wouldn't want to see Doc Brown voice the Doctor. Come on, I'm waiting.
The TARDIS looks partially as if it was made out of junk, like in the Peter Cushing Doctor Who movies. The assistant does somewhat resemble Perry though. Tennant Senior's assistant looks like the Proto-Martha.
The coincidences are just too insane here. All we need now is a crack to appear in the background of one of the
Well, K9 was made to look more like what you could imagine a robotic dog to look like, without a limited budget. But you can also turn it into a bag for some reason.
Didn't the DeLorean also do that in the Back to the Future cartoon? Maybe Nelvana were just bitter about the fact that they didn't get to do the Back to the Future animated series, so they piggybacked off of another time travel franchise to do their own version.
The Daleks resembles the controllers from the BBC microgame, The Mines of Terror. The Cybermen look like a stereotypical 1950s sci-fi robot, which makes me wonder how a person's brain can fit into that. The Master seems to be a cyborg now, with a robot hawk for some reason?
I still like it better than the T-1000 version of the Master from the Sci-Fi Channel movie. And even the Doctor's beloved car, Bessie, appeared, but it seems like they took some inspiration from Back to the Future 2, as the car can fly now.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Bessie, how dare you go gallivanting around like that?
I'm telling you, man, Nelvana just wanted that sweet, sweet BTTF money, but they couldn't get it. So what do you do with all that material? You use it for something else, of course. I mean, it worked so great with District 9, didn't it?
Well, NAB Lana has had some success with making animated spin-offs before, such as with the infamous Star Wars spin-off, Droids, as well as providing the animated portion to the Star Wars Holiday Special. And while only a fledgling studio at this point, the company was one of the best independent animation companies at this time. They also made specials like Intergalactic Thanksgiving and the cult classic 1984 movie Rock and Roll, as George mentioned earlier, and would eventually move on to making cartoons like Fairly Odd Parents, at least for its first 4 series anyway, before Nickelodeon bought that show in its entirety.
Curse you, Nickelodeon! Will your evil never end?
Well, that's not even counting shows like The Magic School Bus, Redwall, Kirby, Strawberry Shortcake, and way too many more to mention. But it is rather a shame we never got to see how this show would turn out.
Well, I don't think they would have been able to capture that rustic and, let's be honest, cheap feel of the original series, and it definitely would have seemed too, I hate to use this term, but American for the fans' liking, which is ironic since they would have been Canadian, but regardless, it would have been cool to see the Doctor in this new animated setting. I love 80s and 90s Nelvana. Their worlds that they created were incredible, and their animation was amazing, so it's just a shame to see that this great premise go to waste, particularly since I would have loved to have seen what would have come out of the intro alone.
Or the outro.
Then again, if the sci-fi movie bombed so bad in trying to capture American audiences, imagine how bad this would have done if it tried to get out there. But then again, that wouldn't have had the problem of having Rupert Murdoch stare over the shoulder of every person who even puts half a second of a clip's worth of it up on the internet. Say it with me, Adam. Rupert Murdoch is a massive fuckknuckle. Doctor Who did eventually make a few animated episodes a few years later, with the other Wilderness Year special, Scream of the Shulker, which I mentioned briefly in my Danger Mouse review. But simply put, it was an attempt to try and integrate Doctor Who into a more modern, dark world. And it worked for the most part creatively, but no one really saw it, unfortunately. But many elements and cast members from the special would later be incorporated into the new modern series of Doctor Who, with Richard E. Grant going on to play the Great Intelligence in Series 8, Sophie Okonedo playing Liz 10 in Series 6, and even Derek Jacobi playing Professor Yana in Series 3.
Cosgrove Hall, however, would eventually make the Infinity Quest, which was a serial that was split into many 5-minute miniseries on the kids' TV show Totally Doctor Who, which starred David Tennant and Freema Agyeman in their respective roles. The story was quite cool and had some good guest stars like Anthony Head and Lisa Tarbuck, but the limited animation didn't hasten its enjoyment and popularity, with it looking more like a flash animation you could find in Newgrounds in the mid-2000s.
But with far less blood and guns than Madness Combat. Thumbs up if you remember that old bit of internet history. And the final attempt by the BBC to animate Doctor Who came out of one of the last hurrahs for David Tennant in Dreamland, which is basically Doctor Who if he was in the Borderlands games. Which I would love to have seen for real. I mean, come on, he was already in Just Cause 3, even though nobody knew that was him, so let's get DT into more video games. Hell, I could totally see him voicing the Riddler in Injustice 2 DLC. Remember those halcyon days before Dark Knight Rises came out and everyone was speculating who the villain could be and who was going to play him, and there were those rumours popping up about David Tennant playing the Riddler? I mean, there were also rumours about Johnny Depp playing him as well, but come on! David Tennant as the Riddler, it's perfect, it's just screaming to be done! So do it at some point, please!
Alas, there has never been no more official attempts to put Doctor Who into animation, which is a shame. While animation may be expensive and a tough business, it is always amazing to look at.
Oh really, Blue Boy?
It's all over now.
We all know this chick, don't we, folks? Can never be too thin or too annoying.
Oh, well, okay, maybe not always, but it still is intriguing to look at the very least.
Doctor Who would be great as an animated series, even just a small one to see what the franchise could be if they had less limitations in what they could show on screen due to the effects. Hell, I could even see it being on channels like Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network. The Yanks would eat that up. There's a big market for Doctor Who in the States, though to be fair, that has caused it to be a little bit disowned by some fans over here, but more fans means more money, and as capitalist as that may sound, you still need money in order to get the show going, so you might as well give it a go in trying to bring it to not only fans in the US again, but younger fans. And David Tennant is in both the new TMNT and DuckTales, even though personally I think that Peter Capaldi would have made a better Scrooge McDuck, but regardless, so why not give it another go, BBC? I'm sure there's some animation company there who would be happy to do it for you. Besides, the Doctor Who equivalent of Gen 1ers, or Nissanson T-Gripers as I like to call them, would have shot this show down faster than a Sycorax ship on Christmas Day. But it's all about thinking what could have been, and with Doctor Who we always think about that, so why not an animated series? But now, I've had enough of this, I'm going on the other side to have a bath, bye! Oh, and thanks BA for helping me out on this video, it's always good to have a little extra help on these things.
Pshaw, help? I didn't even know the first thing about this show. This is hardly CBBC or CRTV material, like I usually cover. And you threw me a script and said, say these lines. I wasn't help. I was just a mere puppet you were feeding words to.
Well, you've done it now anyway, so there you go. Bye!
Oh, shush!
Hey guys, thanks for checking out our new video, and big thanks to Blueartisan for helping me out on this one. He did a really great job. Be sure to check out his channel and look at some of the videos he's done. He's done some really good stuff on there. But until the next time, bye!